Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jason.
And I'm Julia, your co-host. We're so happy to have you here again. Today's topic is a really interesting one, talk English without thinking.
Yes, many English learners want to speak fast and naturally, but they stop and think too much before every word. That makes speaking difficult and slow.
Exactly. Sometimes learners translate every word from their native language before speaking. It takes time, and then the conversation doesn't flow smoothly.
Right. But here's the secret. Fluent speakers don't think too much before speaking. They just talk naturally. And today, we'll show you how you can also do that.
Yes, you'll learn how to train your brain to speak English automatically, like when you speak your first language.
We'll talk about why learners overthink, how to build automatic English thinking, and how to speak confidently without worrying about mistakes.
So, if you've ever felt shy or nervous while speaking English, stay with us. This episode will help you speak freely and confidently.
All right, let's get started. And first talk about why learners struggle to talk without thinking. So, Julia, many English learners say, I know English words, I know grammar, but when I try to speak, my mind goes blank. Why does that happen?
That's such a common problem, Jason. One big reason is that learners try to translate from their native language into English while speaking. That makes the brain work too hard.
Exactly. When we translate, our brain needs extra time to find the right English words. That's why sentences come out slowly, or sometimes not at all.
Yes, and another reason is fear of mistakes. Many learners worry too much about grammar or pronunciation. They think, what if I say it wrong? And then they stop talking.
That's true. But mistakes are part of learning. Native speakers also make small mistakes, but they keep speaking. The goal is communication, not perfection.
Right. And some learners also don't have enough speaking practice. They study a lot reading, writing, or listening, but they don't actually speak enough. So when it's time to talk, they freeze.
That's a very good point. The more you speak, the faster your brain learns to connect ideas and words together.
Exactly. So the main problems are translating, fear of mistakes, and not practicing enough.
Yes. And now that we understand these problems, let's move to the next part, what it really means to talk without thinking too much. Now, Julia, when we say talk without thinking too much, some people might misunderstand. It doesn't mean speaking without using your brain, right?
Of course not. It simply means speaking naturally without stopping to think about every single word, grammar rule, or translation.
Exactly. It's about being comfortable enough with English that your words come out automatically, just like how you speak your first language.
Yes. For example, when you speak your native language, you don't stop to think, what grammar rule should I use? You just say what you want to say.
That's what we mean by automatic speaking. It's when your brain connects ideas and words quickly, so you can express yourself freely.
And that kind of fluency doesn't come from thinking hard. It comes from practice, listening, and repetition. The more you use English, the less you need to think about it.
Well said. So, talking without thinking too much means being relaxed, confident, and natural, not perfect, but comfortable.
Exactly. And now let's talk about how to build that automatic English thinking in your mind.
So, Julia, now that we know what talking without thinking too much really means, how can learners build this automatic English thinking?
That's a great question, Jason. The key is to train your brain to think directly in English instead of translating from your native language.
Right. For example, When you see a cup, don't think of the word in your own language first. Just think cup. Try to connect the English word with the object, not with a translation.
Exactly. The more you do this, the faster your brain learns to think in English automatically. It's like creating a new habit for your mind.
Yes, and one of the best ways to do that is through listening and speaking daily. When you listen to English every day, podcasts, conversations, or even short videos, your brain starts to get used to English sounds and patterns.
That's so true. And if you also speak out loud even to yourself, your mouth and brain start working together. That helps you respond quickly without overthinking.
So, the more you expose yourself to English, the less your brain needs to translate. It just understands and speaks.
Exactly. It's all about practice and exposure. The more English your brain receives, the more naturally it will think in English.
Perfect. Now, let's move to something practical. How you can use simple sentences daily to build this automatic habit. Now, Julia, one of the easiest ways to start talking English without thinking is by practicing simple sentences every day, right?
Absolutely, Jason. Many learners try to use difficult words or long sentences, but that just makes them nervous. It's better to start small, short, and simple sentences you can use in daily life.
Yes, like I'm going to school, I'm making tea, or it's a beautiful day. When you say these kinds of sentences often, they become automatic in your mind.
That's right. The goal is to repeat simple sentences many times until you don't need to think about them anymore. It's just natural.
Exactly. You can even describe what you're doing during the day. For example, when you wake up, say, I'm brushing my teeth. When you go out, say, I'm walking to the shop.
I love that idea. It's a great way to keep your brain thinking in English during normal activities. No books needed, no pressure, just daily life English.
Yes, and this kind of small daily speaking practice builds strong confidence over time.
So true. The secret is to speak a little every day, not just once a week. The more you speak, the more fluent you become.
Exactly. And another great way to train your mind and mouth together is through the listen and repeat technique, which we'll talk about next. So, Julia, now let's talk about one of my favorite ways to speak English more naturally, the listen and repeat technique.
Oh, yes. This is such a powerful method. It's simple, but it really helps your brain and mouth work together to speak English automatically.
Exactly. The idea is easy. You listen to native speakers, and then you repeat exactly what they say. Try to copy their words, tone, and rhythm.
Yes, it's like echoing what you hear. You can do this with podcasts, YouTube videos, or short English conversations. Just pause, repeat, and try to sound the same.
Right. This method is also called shadowing. It helps you speak faster and more naturally, without stopping to think about grammar or vocabulary.
That's true. When you repeat again and again, your mouth learns the movement, and your brain remembers the pattern. It becomes automatic.
Exactly. And you don't have to do it for hours. Even 10 or 15 minutes a day can make a big difference.
Yes, and over time, you'll notice that you start to use those same phrases in real conversations without even planning it.
That's the goal, speaking naturally, not from memory, but from practice. And speaking of phrases, let's talk about how learning common phrases and expressions can help you speak without thinking. Now, Julia, we just talked about the listen and repeat technique. But to really speak without thinking too much, learners also need to know common English phrases and expressions, right?
Absolutely, Jason. Learning common phrases is one of the best ways to sound natural and fluent. It saves you time because you don't have to create sentences word by word.
Exactly. For example, instead of thinking how to say, I understand what you're saying, you can just use the phrase, I get it. It's short and natural.
Yes, and phrases like, that's a good idea, I'm not sure, or let's see are used all the time in real conversations. When you know these, you can reply quickly without stopping to think.
That's right. You can learn them by listening to native speakers or watching English shows. Write them down and practice them out loud every day.
Exactly. And once you use these phrases often, they become automatic. Your brain will remember them like ready-made tools for speaking.
Yes, it's like building your own library of fast answers. The more phrases you know, the easier it is to speak without overthinking.
So true. And next, we'll talk about something that stops many learners from speaking freely, the fear of mistakes.
Julia, I think one of the biggest reasons learners can't speak freely is because they're afraid of making mistakes.
Yes, Jason, that's so true. Many people want to speak perfectly, and that makes them feel nervous. They think, what if I say something wrong? And then they stop talking.
Exactly. But here's the truth. Everyone makes mistakes when learning a language, even native speakers sometimes. Mistakes are part of the learning process.
That's right. You actually learn faster when you make mistakes because you remember and improve. If you never speak, you never get better.
Yes, it's like learning to ride a bike. You might fall a few times, but that's how you learn to balance. The same with English, you must practice speaking, even if it's not perfect.
Exactly. The goal is not perfection, the goal is communication. If people understand you, that's success.
I love that. And when you stop worrying about mistakes, your brain relaxes. You start speaking naturally and confidently without thinking too much.
Yes, so don't be afraid to speak. Every mistake is a small step toward fluency.
Beautifully said, Julia. Now, let's talk about another great way to train your mind to speak freely, by practicing with real people. So, Julia, we've talked a lot about thinking in English and speaking confidently. But I believe one of the best ways to speak without thinking is to practice with real people.
Absolutely, Jason. When you talk with real people, you train your brain to respond quickly, just like in real-life situations. It's completely different from just studying alone.
Yes, because when you speak with others, you don't have time to stop and translate. You have to reply naturally. That's how your mind becomes faster.
Exactly. And the good news is, you don't need to live in an English-speaking country to do this. You can find language partners online or even join English-speaking groups on social media.
That's a great idea. Or you can simply talk to your friends who are also learning English. Make a rule, speak only in English during your conversations.
Yes, and don't worry about mistakes. Focus on sharing your ideas and understanding each other. That's what real communication is all about.
The more you practice with real people, the more natural your speaking becomes, and soon you'll start talking in English without even realizing it.
Exactly. And now, let's share something very helpful, a daily routine that listeners can follow to train themselves to speak English without thinking.
Julia, now that we've discussed all the techniques, let's talk about a daily routine that can help learners speak English without thinking too much.
Yes, Jason. A daily routine is very important. Small, consistent practice every day works better than long, irregular sessions.
Exactly. For example, you can start your day by thinking in English for a few minutes. Describe what you see or what you plan to do in English.
Then, during the day, try to use simple sentences. Talk to yourself, practice phrases, or even describe your actions. I'm drinking water. I'm reading a book.
Next, take 10 to 15 minutes to listen and repeat like podcasts, YouTube videos, or short English dialogues. Shadow the speaker's words and intonation.
Yes, and try to use common phrases whenever possible. Repeat them out loud and make them a part of your speaking.
Finally, if possible, talk with real people, friends, online partners, or groups. Even a short conversation every day helps your brain respond quickly without thinking too much.
Exactly. And remember, the key is consistency. Just 20 to 30 minutes of practice daily can make a big difference over time.
Perfect. And now, let's share some real-life motivation and success examples to inspire our listeners. Julia, I think it's always motivating for learners to hear a real-life success story. Let's share one today.
Yes, there's a student I know who struggled with English. At first, he would pause for a long time, translating every word from his native language. He was afraid of making mistakes.
Exactly. But then he started speaking simple sentences every day, listening and repeating, and practicing with friends. Slowly, he became more confident.
And after a few months, he could speak freely without overthinking. He even joined an English speaking club and could participate in conversations naturally.
That's amazing! His key was daily practice and not fearing mistakes. Anyone can do this if they follow the same steps.
Absolutely. So listeners, remember every small step you take in practicing English moves you closer to speaking naturally and confidently.
Yes! And now, let's quickly recap everything and give some final tips for our listeners. All right, Julia, let's quickly recap what we've learned today.
Sure, Jason. First, we talked about why learners struggle translating, fear of mistakes, and not practicing enough. Then we discussed what it really means to talk without thinking too much.
Right. We also shared techniques like building automatic English thinking, practicing simple sentences daily, listening and repeating, and using common phrases.
And don't forget, overcoming the fear of mistakes and speaking with real people is very important. Plus, following a daily routine can really train your brain to respond naturally.
Exactly. And remember, speaking English without overthinking takes time, but with small, consistent practice every day, you can do it.
Yes. So start today. Speak a little every day, don't worry about mistakes, and keep practicing. Your fluency will improve faster than you think.
That's it for today's episode. If you enjoyed it, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss our English learning podcasts.
And share this episode with your friends who want to speak English confidently. Keep practicing, stay motivated, and see you in the next episode.